Boo, are you finished in the litter box? Because that was very loud. Hey guys, so today I just want to chat, basically. That's it, I want to talk. I'm gonna get ready. I want to do my base makeup and just like chat with you guys. I wanted to give you some updates on my cutting added sugar situation and just kind of chat about some stuff that's been on my mind. So if you're getting ready, get ready with me. Or just like sit back and drink some coffee and do whatever, I don't know, zone out, you know what I mean? I'll link the products down below, but I'm probably not gonna be like talking through stuff. Hopefully, I always say that and then I do. So I watched recently Sam's video. I love Sam. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Sam, if I'm ever referring to Sam, it's Samantha Rovendal. Always and forever will I be nominating her for Beauty Community President. I don't know when we're having elections. It's taking a very long time. Regardless, she is, I would say, one of the wisest voices in the industry. She's seen a lot, she's done a lot. She knows what's up. She's level-headed. If you guys like my vibe and you don't know who Sam is, you'll love her. So I highly recommend checking out her channel. Anyway, I was recently watching her video and she was just kind of talking about like a place that she's been in and I really resonated with it. I felt like very similar, although I don't have a baby right now. I've got 2 cats and a boyfriend, so she's got a little bit more going on than me. I guess I can zoom you in a little. You just feel so far away. Anyway, she was talking about just kind of like this place that she's been in recently where she's not sleeping well, obviously newborn. Actually, I don't know how old they are right now. I don't know when do you say, I don't know anything about kids. Like when do you stop saying newborn? She's not sleeping. She was going through a period where she was overeating, like eating just too much food. She described like getting to a place where she was just like, you know, she would eat until she was full and then she would be like, I want more. And then she would continue to eat until she was uncomfortably full and then continue to eat past that. And I don't know, I think there are definitely a lot of like emotional eaters out there these days. That's something that I can relate to. And I've actually been in that place since I started, since I like fell off the wagon essentially with my added sugar intake. If you didn't see that video, I'll link it somewhere. But essentially added sugar just like doesn't do well with me. We don't work well together at all. And so I have been, since that video, I have been very unsuccessfully trying to cut it out again. And in an attempt to cut added sugar, my body is trying to replace those cravings with just like food in general. So I'm just like overeating, basically. So I just related to that a lot. It's always nice when you hear someone else talk about like a situation that you're going through. I think like in general, I haven't really spoken much about like my personal mental health situation, kind of just because like, I don't know, there isn't any one particular reason. I don't really mind talking about it. I feel like I talk to people close to me about it relatively often, but not publicly. And half of me is just kind of like, I don't know, a lot of people do already talk about it. So like, why do I need to? Siva, do you mind? Actually, I don't even know if I've spent that much time thinking about it, to be completely honest with you, or why I don't talk about it, you know? Ziva stole one of my lip pencil sharpeners. So that'll be happening in the background. Anyway, one person that I really respect a lot for talking about it is, I don't know if you guys follow her, Denise As I Am on Instagram. Shout out to Denise. She's been pretty open about it, and I really appreciate that. Because this was like years at this point, but we grabbed breakfast one time when she was in LA. And I think we had one of the like it was just such a candid conversation about like mental health. And that was probably one of the first conversations that I had with somebody who, we've been following each other for a really long time, but that was the first time that we like had really had a chance to like talk in person. And it was probably the most candid conversation about mental health that I've had with a person who I like was just still getting to know. And I think that that's something that's like happening more and more, it seems. I'd be curious to hear like what age group you are and if this happens in your like friend group or when you're meeting new people or whatever. But I'm 32 and I feel like a lot of the people around me who are like generally around my age feel similarly and tend to participate in a similar way when it comes to like talking about mental health. It kind of like, you know, it starts off with sort of like the basic pleasantry type things, especially when it's, or just catching up if it's like an old friend. But I would say pleasantries, intro type situation when it's someone brand new. But then I don't know, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like it kind of ends up going much deeper at some point, and this has been happening with basically everyone I've been speaking to. I'm also genuinely curious about people's like opinions on on how open people have become about mental health. I think it's a good thing. I think it's something that should be normalized. Like I think it's a good thing to meet someone new and to get into that. I am not huge on small talk, so superficial small talk doesn't really interest me very much. I have a very difficult time maintaining a conversation if it revolves around small talk. So if I am speaking to someone and it gets a little bit deeper, I understand that person better now, and I feel like I create a connection with that person more than if we're just talking about like, I don't know, bullshit, you know what I mean? Anyway, I would recommend you watch Sam's video. She was kind of talking about like, talked about a bit about mental health, about her situation, about some like documentaries that came out recently about mental health. I haven't seen them, so I couldn't really like weigh in on that. Kind of feel like I'm hearing or seeing a lot on the internet, and the internet is the worst place in general to try and get a feel for like how people actually feel, because you're probably only hearing like people who are annoyed about something or people who are annoying talk about something. So it's not the best focus group, it's really not. But I'm always interested to hear like how real people, maybe you don't comment on the internet very much or interact with the internet very much at all, other than like to watch, you know, a makeup tutorial. What your opinion is really of how the conversation around mental health has changed. Do you think that people are too open? Do you think it's really good that people are extremely open? Do you think that people should be too open, if you can call it that? I definitely have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I can see it from pretty much all sides, I think. I can see the argument for, you know, this like conversation around mental health because it's become normalized so much that, you know, there's definitely those arguments, and Sam talked about this a bit in her video, where, you know, it becomes a bit glamorized. I don't think that that's like a super valid argument or even really something to be super concerned about. I think like, yes, there's always going to be people who do that kind of thing, but they'll do that, they'll exist in any area. It's not because of mental health, you know? I think there are always attention seekers who take advantage of certain things. But I personally think that the benefits outweigh the negatives in that regard, you know? And I think if there are people who are upset about mental health being like so out there, it's like such a thing, something to keep in mind is just that like overcorrection always happens, you know? So if something hasn't been talked about for a very long time, you're probably going to get overcorrection. You're probably going to get a lot of people talking about something to make up for it. I watched this TikTok of this girl. I'm not going to be able to remember who it was now. She was pretty big on TikTok though. Really pretty, blonde hair. I don't know. That could be anybody. But she was responding essentially to someone who was, I guess 40 and up, who was responding to, like doing a makeup tutorial, responding to like how young people do their makeup. And the woman who she was responding to, the one 40 plus or whatever, was definitely had an attitude. She was responding to it. She kind of had an attitude back, but also made some really good points. I don't know. TikTok is a weird dude. I think one of the things, this is just something that's been on my mind recently, but I think it's such a cliche for young kids to think that older people are like out of touch and have nothing to contribute. And also for those older people to look at young kids like they're inexperienced and dumb and have nothing to contribute. There's a song by Rubble Bucket, one of my favorite bands, Rubble Bucket. I think it's called Young and Old, pretty sure. And it's really good. And essentially the song is talking about that. Just kind of how like neither of the generations, like older and younger, respect each other. Which is so strange because something that I like, as I get older, something that I'm really afraid of is becoming one of those older people who just like doesn't want to change, who gets stuck in a certain place and just looks at everyone younger than them and is like, you don't know what you're doing, you're like ruining, you know, the world or whatever, you're too young and too inexperienced and you don't know. That's like such a fear of mine. I don't want to be like that. Like in some regard, I think it's just natural. It's like a natural thing. Because obviously, like, I don't know, generations are going to be different. They're growing up in completely different times with completely different, like, access to technology and just everything. Everything is totally different. So it makes sense. Like, I understand it from both points of view. But the fact that it's always been a thing, like, it's always been a thing. Because that was one of the points that the girl in the TikTok makes. She's like saying to this woman, like, I'm sure you didn't do your makeup the way your mom did or whatever. Or I'm sure you didn't approve or whatever. Like, younger people are always like, oh, my mom, or like, oh, my parents, like, they're so like old and out of touch or old and embarrassing. What I think is funny is that like parents, like when people get older, they don't necessarily like remember that. Like, you were young, and when you were young, you probably thought your parents were lame. So, I don't know. That's just something that I've been thinking about. As I get older, as I think about like having kids or having a family someday, I just don't want to do that. Like, I know I'm going to be lame to my kids, you know, at some point. But like, I think that's just natural. And I don't want to like, I never want to not take them seriously or invalidate their like opinions or their point of view because they're young. It's like, that's literally how people learn and become people. You have to start from somewhere, right? You have to have like some point of view. And I don't think it's invalid just because you're young and maybe inexperienced in certain places or areas of your life. I don't know. These are just things that have been on my mind. Oh God, Ziva's having a crazy moment. Ziva. Oh yeah, that was one of the reasons that came up in my mind, because I'm like drawing on my face, and that was one of the things that the woman, the over 40 woman, was like, I don't understand why all these young kids have to like draw all over their face. It's just like, I don't know. If you don't like it, just don't do it. You know, it's that simple. I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about internet discourse at some point, but it always just feels like such a moot point because the people that will understand aren't the people who are commenting the fucked up shit. You know? Like the people who, I don't know, who I can really get through to in a conversation like that aren't doing it in the first place. Hey, don't do that. Ziva! She's trying to steal my ornaments. Okay, bro, that has to go there, otherwise the tree is not balanced, so... No. Go. I probably talked about this enough, but as a YouTuber, as someone who, you know, works online, I have a very interesting perspective on how people treat not only me as like a person who they don't really view as like a real person because I'm like on a screen, you know? Like you're not in the room with me, so I don't know. It removes the human element when you just like see somebody on a screen. So on the one hand, there's that, which makes it a little bit easier to comment like, I don't know, just shitty stuff. So I kind of understand why people do it to me. But I also, like when people leave comments, or especially when they go back and forth in the comments, like I'm getting the notifications. So when people are having fights in the comments, I see it, which is kind of crazy. So I also have the perspective of like watching people interact with each other online when, you know, that humanity is like removed, when you're just like avatars or whatever. And it's some wild shit, man. It's similar to when you're in a car and you have road rage and you're in this like steel box. Our car's made out of steel. And you just feel like, I don't know, you flip somebody off, or you're like pissed off because somebody cut you off, or maybe like they needed to change lanes and it makes you angry because now like there's a car ahead of you or something and like you're gonna be 0.3 seconds later than you were going to be or whatever. If that same person was like walking in front of you in the grocery store and that same situation happened, like with your freaking carts or whatever, like would you act the same way? Probably not, right? Like it's pretty psycho behavior. I just really hate viewing that stuff. I don't like seeing it. It makes me sad. It's like when you go on Twitter and you think like Twitter, you know, you just see a bunch of people like fighting in the comments or something about something. And then you think like Twitter represents like the world, and it doesn't at all. Like it's probably just like, I don't know, 50 crazy people who are pissed off about something. The majority of people aren't spending all of their day on Twitter, leaving comments or interacting with like, or bots or whatever it is. Just gives you like a really fucked up view of like what the world is like. And I think that that's kind of like contributed to a lot of polarization in today's world. Is that like similar to me going on YouTube and seeing one negative comment that like ruins my whole fucking day, even though like the majority of you are super kind for like no reason, like just so kind, say the nicest things, leave compliments, you know. That one comment is the one that sticks out and just like ruins my whole day. It's a psychological thing. I don't really know how to deal with it. I don't know how people can deal with it. It's tough because we're just kind of like trying to catch up with how technology has affected our psychology. We're only now like looking at it and being like, oh shit, dude, this has had like a major effect on people. And kids are growing up with it, with apps and just like phones and screens in front of them all the time. Some wild shit. That was another thing that Sam talked about that I've always like respected about her. She was talking about, you know, obviously this job that we have. Oh, shit, the light from the window. Oh, I don't think I can fix that. Did I? Fuck. Like, obviously this isn't a physically taxing job. It can be kind of if you're like stressed and not sleeping and, you know, waking up early and working long days and like staring at a screen, like taxing in that kind of way physically. But it's not like fucking, you know, roofing or something, obviously. Or just like having to be on your feet all day in like a fucking factory, like packing boxes or whatever. And also like we have so much control over our schedule. Like I'm always thankful that I get to like, I can decide what I want to film. I can like work from home. It's amazing. Like I can decide my schedule. Dude, forever thankful for that. Like it is the best. I love it so much. And like for the most part, especially people who are in this position, we have like our basic needs met. You know what I mean? Like we're not worried about where our food is coming from. We probably have like, I live in an apartment. Not only do I have a shelter, I have a beautiful apartment. I love it, you know? And when you have your basic needs met, you start looking for other things to like stress about, which is why mental health becomes like something that so many YouTubers, well, that's one contributing factor. It's not the only one, but one of the reasons that mental health becomes like something that every, you know, YouTuber or influencer, I guess, people who like spend their time on the internet for work, it's one of the reasons that they start talking about it. Also because of like being exposed to comments, usually like saying shitty things about like your physical appearance or just like your personality in general or just whatever. I mean, pretty much anything, which kind of like, you know, obviously wears on a person's mental health. I just think it's kind of interesting, especially because there've been so many like YouTubers recently. Wow, I've lost my train of thought. I don't even fucking know what I'm doing right now. Blush, maybe? This blush? Do I want this blush? Maybe that was a powder blush. There have just been so many YouTubers who have like gone on these like health journeys. Like Alyssa Ashley did like all makeup content and she just completely changed her content towards fitness. She looks fucking great, by the way. I want her to be my trainer. Like, can we work out together? And she talks a lot about mental health on her channel. Crispy disappeared. Obviously had like a crazy experience. Highly recommend going and watching her video if you don't know what I'm talking about. She completely disappeared. She seems like she's in a really good place now, thankfully. And, you know, I think it's just something that like ends up happening with a lot of YouTubers. I'm sure people get so sick of hearing about it. Like, we get it, you're a fucking YouTuber and you get mean comments and you're going on your mental health journey, you know? It seems inevitable though. What am I doing? I should probably set my face. Should I set my face? So that's why, sorry, I'm just like a little bit amused because I started this off by being like, I haven't talked that much about my mental health. I don't know if I really will. It is a luxury. And it's because you don't really have the time or the resources to focus on it if you are, you know, working paycheck to paycheck, trying to make sure that you don't get evicted from your apartment or providing for your kids or something, you know? But there are also people who are in those situations who are dealing with mental health problems and they're not in a situation where they can deal with it. And then that ends in tragedy. So I do think that the conversation around mental health is an important one. I'm glad that it's become more mainstream, I guess. It's weird to like not talk about that stuff. That being said, I've never really like talked about my own personal experiences. What is she doing? I don't know if you guys can hear that. She's like dragging her food bowl around. What a destructive little cat. Dude, honestly, I'm really hot right now in this velour freaking Skims thing. I gotta change. Just switching robes. This is a ramble. Basically, since I filmed that video where I talked about like how I started kind of slipping as far as my diet goes, and when I say diet, I just mean like what I'm eating, not that I'm like on a strict diet or anything like that. It's lifestyle, it's just like lifestyle. When I started slipping and I started eating added sugar, if you're confused about all of this, that video will be linked somewhere. If you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I just like have not felt like myself. I had this conversation with the girl who does my hair, Sarah. She does my hair color. I was like, I just wish I was more adaptable because I feel like my schedule gets thrown off and then everything gets thrown off. I start eating poorly, I stop working out, and I just end up, it leads to like habits that make me feel like shit. And then it makes it very difficult for me to pick up the habits that make me feel good. She was like, honestly, it just sounds like that's something that you need. Like that's just setting boundaries. Like if you need to do something that's gonna make you feel good, you have to prioritize those things. And I hadn't thought about it that way. I was thinking about it in such a negative way, and it was nice to hear her say that. Because I was like, you know what? It's true. Like I've tried to do it other ways and it just doesn't work. So anyway, since that video where I cut out sugar, I hadn't really. I said I was like working on it. It was definitely a struggle, major struggle. I'm finally at the point where I think I've been off of added sugar for like, maybe a couple weeks? I don't even know at this point. It was really slow though, really slow, very difficult. And I've been overeating as a result. So now that's something I'm trying to work on. But when all of that stuff, and I talked about this in that video, when that happens, my like productivity just plummets. The way I feel about myself, my productivity, like my motivation in every aspect of my life just disintegrates basically, which is annoying. I don't want it to be like that. And I know that I think the only thing that's nice is that like, you know, other people are going through it. And that's why I appreciate when someone like Sam uploads a video like that, because it makes me feel a little bit better. Like she was describing it and I was like, I'm literally going through this, everything minus the baby. But just her, like the way she was feeling and things she was doing essentially to like cope, I guess. It's going through essentially the exact same thing. It just feels nice to hear, you know, when someone is going through the same thing as you. So, I don't know. If you've been annoyed recently by like all of the focus on mental health conversations, or if you just feel like, oh, people are talking about this because they want attention or whatever it is, I think it really is a helpful thing. There's definitely going to be those people who take advantage. There's always going to be people who take advantage of a situation. That doesn't mean that the thing is bad, you know? It's yin and yang. There's always going to be a negative with the positive. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. No solution is ever going to be perfect. On the one hand, I kind of feel like internet discourse, I'm like so confused by it. I feel like it's kind of, it emboldens certain people to act like dicks, more so, more than they may have previously or prior to the internet or social media. But then you also want to keep in mind that like it's just a loud minority, I think, on the internet who's being like real dicks. Basically, for this video, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not in the best place right now. And so it's okay if you aren't too. I've been feeling like shit. You know what? I've also been just like very insecure recently about my content. I kind of feel like I'm starting over, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I could probably like come up with some reasons, but yeah, I don't know. I think it makes, it's one of those annoying things. I know that like a lot of people end up watching certain people for certain content. And then when they pivot or they change or they fall out of love with what they originally started watching them for, or what their audience originally started watching them for, it's disappointing to their audience. So that's something I'm very aware of, because I share that feeling. There are definitely people who I've like watched who I started watching them for a certain reason, and they change their content, and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not really interested in this. There are other people who I'm just like, you could literally just like sit in a chair in a silent room and stare, and I would watch it. But I don't know. These are all things that I consider when I start to feel like a little bit unsure of my content. I'm just like not, I don't know. I feel like when I started YouTube, I wanted to do makeup tutorials. I wanted to do makeup reviews, and it took a while to kind of like find what sort of set me apart, I think. Or for me to recognize at least what set me apart, which didn't really happen until during the pandemic, during 2020. And people really kind of fell in love with my short to the point educational videos, which is awesome. I love teaching. So that was actually like my original plan. Before I even started getting into makeup, I thought, I would go and get my master's in my MFA and then become like a teacher. So that sort of ended up happening. I kind of teach art now, just a little different. So it was nice when those videos started to do well, and it kind of gave me an idea of like what people wanted to see and why they wanted to watch. And now, I don't know, I kind of feel like I'm tapped out of that content. I also kind of feel like people are over it. And I know that there are a lot of people who say that they're not, but you can only do the same thing for so long. So I'm kind of in that place where I feel like I'm starting over right now. And I just don't really know. I just really don't know. I think this happens to everybody at some point. Everybody always asks, Auric, not with an O. I'll link it. I always link everything down below. So you should always check the description, especially if I mention something. If I mention it, it's in the description. This is the Plush Ritual. It's a lip balm treatment type thing, and it's amazing. And I'm literally scraping the last little bits out of this one. Perfection. God, I like need to stop talking about this stuff because I feel like I'm just gonna end up getting myself down. But it also feels, I don't know, there's something cathartic about putting it out there and just kind of being like upfront with people. It's so funny, I'll get comments from people and they'll be like, you're so down in this video. Like, I hope you're okay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I was completely fine. I felt great. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then there will be other times where no one says that, but in the video or during the video, I remember like feeling so fucking depressed and like not wanting to film it, but they don't catch it then. It's the same thing with like people trying to guess my zodiac sign. I get so many people being like, oh my God, she's such an Aries, or oh my God, you're definitely a Sagittarius, or oh my God, what a Virgo. They never guess the right one unless I've already said it and they just confirm. It's pretty funny. I want to change my eyebrows, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I gotta think about that. I got a game plan. Yeah, all right. That's it, you guys. I really just wanted to chat with you, and I don't know. I just wanted to chat. I wanted you to know where I was coming from. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. I just want to hear what's going on with you. I'm like, do I have seasonal defective disorder or whatever the fuck it's called? Like, I live in LA, bro. It's still sunny here, but I genuinely feel like when the seasons changed, my mood really changed. So I don't know, whatever. I hope you enjoyed this talk. It probably wasn't the most like uplifting one that you've ever listened to, but I don't know, whatever. Leave whatever you want in the comments. Literally anything, and I'll get back to you. And also let me know what you want to see next. And that's it. I got other shit that I gotta film, so I'm gonna go. But this has been a great talk. We went through 2 robes. Bye.